Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's edition of the Sunday Wire. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. Now, guys, we got a lot of ground to cover here. This is the Iran conflict is now in day 15, officially. So you guys, look, what you're seeing in the news and what's actually happening is becoming more and more evident. These are two different realities. There's heavy censorship on the U.S. side. We'll talk about that and the implications of this in a few minutes now. And also, there's also heavy censorship on the Israeli side. So you're not seeing a lot of the scenes from Tel Aviv. So I think, the American public and people in the West are getting a very distorted view, getting a very distorted view of what's actually happening. And we're going to try to redress some of those inconsistencies, contradictions, and just the outright war propaganda that you're seeing right now. And the thing you have to understand is, and this is a good sort of jump off point, and we'll get to the task at hand in just a moment here. But what you have to understand is, if you followed the war in Ukraine, okay, from February 2022, I made this point before, and I think it's worth reiterating. If you followed that, you would have thought, having looked at all of the Western mainstream media coverage. Now, I'm also including the British press, the European press, everybody. If you followed the mainstream press and listened to our politicians, they all basically said the same. They were singing the same tune. And that tune was this, that Russia is on the verge of collapse. Russia is running out of bullets. Putin's in hiding. The Russians, the army's a spent force. They're out there fighting with shovels. They literally said that. They ran stories in the Western press that Russia ran out of guns and they're out there with shovels, and that Russia's lost 1.5 million Russian soldiers. I mean, they're just making up outlandish numbers. And conversely, they're telling you that Ukraine hasn't lost anybody. The Ukrainians absolutely scot-free, perfect, no casualties at all, just maybe a few soldiers here and there. They're routing the Russians, and let's just get behind them. More money, more weapons, and we're going to have regime change in Moscow by the end of the counteroffensive. They ran with this for 3 straight years, and guess what? Everything that was said for 3 years turned out to be not only false, but the opposite is true. The Ukrainian armed forces have more or less collapsed on the front lines. Russia is not a spent force. In fact, they've mobilized. It's a rout, okay? And it's widely acknowledged that Russia has already won that war. So think about that for a moment when you're looking at the Iran coverage right now. What makes you think that they're not running the same full spectrum information war with this conflict with Iran? And if you believe the U.S. reports or statements by Trump, and they're saying that, we've wiped out their entire Navy, we've wiped out their Air Force, we've wiped out all their missiles, there's nothing left in Iran. Quite frankly, we're running out of targets, says Trump. I mean, it's clownish. It's clownish, okay? They are running the same information war. They are. And so because the West now regards the media as part of the military operation, so much so that any negative reporting they consider a threat to national security. It's literally codified in their new total war doctrines. They call it 5th generation warfare. We just call it public opinion and media and press. Okay, you don't need fancy military terms to basically come up with some innovative label to somehow weaponize public opinion and information and truth. Okay, these warmongering maniacs are just, they've turned the mediascape into an absolute festival of lies and propaganda. And they call it 5th generation warfare. They don't care what's true. All they care about is they want to get you, the public, to manufacture consent for a very unpopular war. We talked about the polling last week. 1 out of every 4 Americans think that this war in Iran is a good idea, and that's currently plummeting by the minute. Okay. If you ran real-time polling on this, you'll see it going down, 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 down. Okay. There's no support for this conflict. It's an undeclared, unprovoked, illegal war of aggression by the Trump administration, and they made up so flimsy 10 different flimsy excuses as to why they had to attack. And the only person really telling the truth is probably incidentally, by accident, Marco Rubio, who said that they had to go in preemptively, as they call it, because Israel was going anyway. And if the U.S. didn't go in with Israel, then the U.S. might get retaliation from the Iranians. So they might as well do a preemptive illegal war in the first place. Okay, that's not a serious explanation. But then again, these people are absolutely desperate. So that's the first thing. So let's get to the task at hand here. This is the program today, and the theme of today's show is we're talking about the collapse of an empire. Okay, the Iran war, the implosion of Trump, and the U.S. empire. Okay, it is times like this. It is events like this. Just the naked, wanton, just train wreck that you're watching right now in real time. These are the things that punctuate the collapse of empires throughout history. It's important that everybody understands what we are witnessing right now. Okay. Now, that's not to say the U.S. can't do tremendous damage and they haven't killed thousands of Iranians. Okay. The U.S. has killed, to the last count I saw, over 1,500 Iranian civilians. Okay. They're just getting warmed up, apparently, but maybe not. They're also running out of munitions. They're also running out of air refueling tankers, 5 of which just got smashed on the tarmac in the Saudi Arabian Air Force Base, where the U.S. were hiding these planes. Iran found them, sent missiles, and smashed them to pieces. Okay, you're not reading about that. And there was an air-to-air refueling. 2 of them allegedly collided over Kuwait. Okay, very bizarre. And they said, "Oh, it was an accident. It was friendly on friendly." But that's interesting because now you see there's no U.S. planes flying over the airspace in Kuwait. So if they didn't get shot down, why are no planes flying over Kuwaiti airspace? So we're not going to get a straight answer from this government because they're just paranoid right now. They're cratering in the polls on this. They're losing aircraft, record number of losses of aircraft and drones for any U.S. conflict, probably going back to the Vietnam War. So, call that a success if you must. But anyway, they think they can kill their way to victory here. So let's look at the bigger picture here. Okay. And we will put some meat on the bones of this analysis. Now, when I was talking about the propaganda war, if Iran's military was wiped out, as Trump claims, okay, actually, let's bring him up on screen. Let's bring Trump up. Might as well hear it from the horse's mouth, folks. So we'll bring the Don, the president. We'll bring him up on screen in just a moment. So this is what Trump is saying.
Is that a great name? Well, it's only good if you win. You can only do. And we've won. Let me tell you, we've won. You never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. But we won. But they gave me a list of names at General. Sir, you can pick the name you'd like, sir. I said, the name of what? The name of the attack on Iran, sir. And they gave me like 20 names. And I'm like falling asleep. I didn't like any of them.
He says he's falling asleep. Yeah, that's about the only truthful thing Trump said right there. Just look at the people behind Trump. That's what's left. It's literally the bottom of the barrel. Okay, it is literally, as they say in French, cul du sac, the bottom of the bag, MAGA slop. Okay, this is what's left, and they parade them in the background for optics to make it look like Trump has popular support. All the polling shows he doesn't. Not only does Trump not have popular support, this is the lowest approval rating for a U.S. war since the Vietnam War. It's not epic fury, folks. It's epic fail. It is epic fail. You're watching it. And this clown, this sorry excuse for a president, is basically trying to run, watching his speeches. It's like Dean Martin's celebrity roast. I mean, it was entertaining on the campaign trail, but, enough already. Enough already. I'm looking for a real legitimate president. I couldn't find one for love nor money. This is Donald Trump, folks. Absolutely embarrassing. But anyway, watch him hoist himself by his own petard here.
Then I see Epic Fury. I said, I like that name. I like that name.
I like that name. I mean, it's a joke. This guy is so detached from reality. It's so he says we won in the first hour. That was 2 weeks ago. Really? Why are the U.S. still losing aircraft? Why are they suppressing the number of dead U.S. soldiers? By all reports, that the hospitals in Germany and Kuwait are full. And you're telling me there's only 7 dead U.S. servicemen when 24 U.S. bases and facilities have taken direct hits? That's not all they're suppressing. Anyway, they'll slowly drip feed the numbers out as they normally do because, as we said, this is total warfare, fifth generation warfare. They can't risk losing public support, even though they've lost it already. These people have really painted themselves into an incredible corner here. So if Trump is correct, then how come Iran, just 2 days ago, launched the 37th missile barrage? And it was the most missiles yet. That's interesting. That kind of goes against every claim that we've heard from every U.S. official that they've wiped out most of their missile capability. No, not only is it the most number of missiles, the missiles that Iran are launching right now have larger payloads, larger explosive payloads. Now, I said this 2 weeks ago because I knew, because I had just come back from Tehran. We had met people who are involved in the missile program. They spoke to the press. And so I relayed that on a number of media outlets in the U.S., including ours, that when Iran depletes the air defense, Patriot missile batteries, Iron Dome batteries, THAAD missile batteries, with all of their drones and older missiles and some smaller missiles, once the air defense, for the most part, the interceptors are depleted, then they're going to send the heavy missiles with the huge explosive payloads, because they'll be able to get through the air defense, which they've been consistently puncturing for 2 weeks. But it's really devastating now. And that's why there's so much censorship as to what's actually happening in Israel, for instance. And so we're starting to see some of the things leak out. So, I mean, this president is a joke at this point. I mean, here's a scene from Tel Aviv. You want to see what's happening in Israel? Well, you won't see this on the U.S. mainstream media, unfortunately. It sort of looks like this. That's an underground bunker. That's where the Israelis go to hide when there's a missile barrage. So Iran has been able to penetrate the shelters, the Israeli shelters, and are laying waste to massive amount of facilities in Israel, military targets, not to mention all the U.S. bases that have been hit. And they're suppressing this. In the Arab countries, if you report in the UAE, for instance, it's an imprisonable offense to put any of this on social media. You could get arrested in Israel. That's how desperate they are to basically cover up all of these scenes. That's what's actually happening. So, where's Trump coming from on this? Okay. So his reaction is just to, hit civilian targets, civilian infrastructure in Iran. And when they go for, and we'll talk about the other, targets that the U.S. are hitting as well, and how this is going to backfire dramatically on them. So, I mean, folks, this is just the way it is. So, why don't they just come clean with the public on what's actually happening? It's all or nothing now. These people are doubling down. This is so dangerous right now. And we'll bring this analysis back on stage here. So that's what's happening. Slow motion train wreck here. Now, I want to give a shout out to Freddie Ponton, who published this on Friday morning. Okay, the Kharg Island obsession. The shot Washington was too smart to take in 1980. So Freddie Ponton at 21st Century Wire published this in the morning, talking about how the U.S. is an imminent strike that's going to happen. Okay, Freddie is an excellent analyst, and researcher. Okay, that was Friday morning. Trump then bombed Kharg Island by dinner time. Okay, that's how accurate our reporting is. Laser focused, very accurate, and I was surprised and a little bit horrified at how accurate this reporting was. Nonetheless, it's tragic what's happening, but we're just saying that we are doing incredibly precise analysis and reporting. And thank you, Freddie Ponton, for an excellent report. And the historical context of this you have to read. Then you can really understand all the different risks, as well as if Trump or if the U.S. decide to hit Iran's petroleum facilities on Kharg Island, Iran will then respond and hit the Gulf's petroleum facilities. And then basically, folks, we have a global catastrophe on our hands, economically and also in terms of energy shortages. So is Trump willing to push it that far? We don't know. It depends how crazy and desperate Israel are, because they're running U.S. foreign policy at the moment, not the United States. We'll see, unless there's a coup in Washington. But who's holding their breath for that? I'm certainly not holding my breath on that. So this was Trump's reaction, okay? This clown of a president. This is what he said. Trump claims U.S. strikes on Kharg Island totally demolished the military infrastructure there, but we may have to hit a few more times just for fun. Read that again, folks. This is the President of the United States. We may have to hit them a few times more just for fun. This person is not fit to govern, okay? Is not fit to be president of anything, not even president of Trump University, okay? He's not fit. He's crazy. He's detached from reality. This guy is completely out of his mind. Okay, just for fun. This guy just landed in the White House 12 months ago, 13 months ago. And he's talking like it's the U.S. military is his own private army. And shame on every U.S. commander, shame on the Joint Chiefs, shame on General Kane and all of you people that have rubber stamped this illegal war. And if there's Nuremberg trials, the results of the first Nuremberg trials, read the conclusions of the Nuremberg principles. Just following orders, just following the commander in chief, that's not an admissible defense in a war crimes trial, according to U.S. law and international law. Every single person, every officer, every person who took part in this, in the Pentagon, from Pete Hegseth right down the line, and in the U.S. military and armed services. You are all a party to war crimes and crimes against humanity. And I was just following the president's orders. No, you were executing an illegal, unconstitutional act of war, an undeclared war of aggression. And this is your commander in chief. Let's just go hit him just for fun. Disgraceful. You're not defending America. You're not defending freedom. You're literally going to war for Israel. and for U.S. corporations in the defense sector, for their profits, for their dividends, for their bottom lines. That's who you're fighting for. You're fighting for transnational corporations. You're fighting for Palantir. You're fighting for Bill Gates. You're fighting for Elon Musk. And you're fighting for this clown that some people still call president. Let's just go bomb them a few more times for fun, says Donald Trump. I mean, folks, this is a joke. You know, the calls will soon come to remove him from office by hook or crook. 25th Amendment, he's lost touch with reality. I think that's beyond debate at this point. But, you know, don't take my word for it. Let's hear. Let's hear. Okay, so this is, I believe this is a clip from the Daniel Davis show this week, and somebody who I have great admiration and respect for, who is a brilliant lawyer and a brilliant political mind. His name is Robert Barnes. He's an American attorney. He used to be in the Trump advisory circle, no longer, and you'll see why he's not in Trump's circle anymore, because he actually knows what he's talking about, and he knows exactly what's going on. Listen to this. This is his take. I have to say this is just incredibly accurate, but here it is.
Richard Nixon, Watergate, talking to paintings at the end around the White House as if they're real people. That's where Trump is mindset-wise. It's very King Lear going mad. Kind of that the combination of Lindsey Graham, Bibi Netanyahu, it's what he believes, what he wants to believe, and he ignores whatever he doesn't want to believe. And it's becoming very, very dangerous because he's utterly disconnected from reality. And it's where positive thinking can go AWOL. So it's a combination of the Israel lobby promises that he made to basically go along with whatever Bibi Netanyahu requested, and this has been his life dream. This is why you don't have a coherent strategy being announced. You don't have a coherent plan being announced. You don't have coherent objectives. He did it for the Israeli donors and Bibi Netanyahu, but he can't fully say that. Rubio implicitly acknowledged it and admitted it. It's leaked out from various parts of the press. But that's why, but he can't publicly acknowledge that. So that's why he's got to go around and pretend he did it. And thus the objectives keep shifting. The plan keeps shifting. The reasons keep shifting.
I mean, folks, yeah, King Lear, that's an apt, I think, metaphor or analogy to this current ridiculous, this imperial, let's call it what it is, folks. We are witnessing an imperial train wreck. This is an imperial train wreck, and you are able to watch it in real time. Take a mental snapshot of this point in history, folks, because you may never see it again. This may be the undoing of the United States as a constitutional republic. And this would, if that's the case, if that happens, mark my words, you can lay it all at the feet of Donald Trump and this gaggle of degenerate zealots that he has surrounded himself with, the Israeli lobby and Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay. These people want to bring the United States down with them, and they're doing a fantastic job of it. Okay. The sad thing is, and the dangerous part of this is, how many people are they going to kill? How much damage are they going to do around the world before they destroy themselves? That's the fundamental question. Okay. That's the question we're putting out. So, I mean, this guy's unbelievable. So just to show you where this is heading, the United States just issued this warning. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad urges all American citizens to leave Iraq immediately. On Saturday, after the embassy was attacked overnight for the second time since the war with Iran started. Now, the U.S. had been at war with Iran for years. But the warning said militias allied with Iran. No, those are Iraqi militias. The U.S. just has to propagandize everything. They have to twist everything, even their official statements. They have to insert their propaganda line. Militias allied with Iran? No. The Hashd al-Shabi, the People's Mobilization Units in Iraq, they're nested under the Iraqi Ministry of Defense. Yes. But you know what? Most of Trump's advisors wouldn't know that because most of them don't have a clue what they're doing and they know nothing about anything. What I'm saying now is probably like news to J.D. Vance. He's vice president. He's AWOL, by the way. He disappeared. Like Tulsi Gabbard, AWOL. Ran away, disappeared, staying out of the press, not saying anything controversial. God forbid. So militias allied with Iran have carried out numerous attacks on targets associated with the United States. In diplomatic facilities? No, not diplomatic facilities, intelligence facilities. Because the U.S. has proven that they will use their embassies as CIA stations everywhere on the planet. And you know what? They've been doing it for years. They've been doing it for 70 years. But they still think the world is stupid. So that's the problem. That's why you don't weaponize your diplomatic facilities and turn them into spook hubs, because they will end up getting targeted and you can't cry about it after the fact. So you go and launch a war against Iraq's neighbor, Iran, an unprovoked war of choice, an undeclared war of aggression, and you're surprised that the Iraqis are upset about this? And it wasn't the United States that destroyed the country of Iraq? Not only destroyed it, but put their boot on their neck and rubbed the face of that nation into the dirt for 15 years after the invasion and shock and awe operation? And you think the Iraqis are still outside the gates of your embassy with flowers and garlands, waiting for you to pass out, for our soldiers, our Marines to pass out candy to them? Do you guys really think that's the way it is? I mean, you read these official statements and you just wonder what reality these people are in. It is recommended Americans travel overland to neighboring countries because commercial flights were not operating, and warned them not to come on the embassy. How long till Donald Trump launches airstrikes against Iraq? Well, it already started. The United States reportedly hit a PMU base in Iraq just this week. I can't tell you how dangerous that is. Well, it's dangerous for the U.S. This was all avoidable, by the way. But Israel had to have their way. Incredible, right? Now, it gets even more interesting. So, Tucker Carlson, there is a rumor, well, Tucker said it himself, they're preparing some kind of an arrest for Tucker Carlson, the Trump administration. So the government will have crossed the Rubicon, says Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks. Now, I used to absolutely rail on Cenk Uygur during the Biden administration. And, during Trump 1.0 with Russiagate and all this stuff. Okay. I think we can bury the hatchet. Cenk has been absolutely incredible with his commentary post October 7th. And he's just getting better and better. And so I'm happy to see the left rediscover their anti-war bona fides, and also understanding the problem Israel presents. So Cenk says, everyone will know the real reason was that Tucker opposed the war and opposed Israel. Thank you, Cenk. He'll be considered the first American political prisoner within our own country. Well, not the first, but the most high profile. Okay. So that's what Tucker's saying. That's what Cenk's saying here. Let's listen to Tucker Carlson himself, who just recently put this out. We're going to play this because it's so important that people hear this from Tucker himself.
So the other day I found out that the CIA is preparing some kind of criminal referral against me, a crime report to the Department of Justice on the basis of a supposed crime I committed. What's that crime? Well, talking to people in Iran before the war. They read my texts. So the crime under consideration apparently would be the Foreign Agent Act or something like that, acting as an agent of a foreign power. And I don't expect this to go anywhere. I'm not too worried about an actual criminal case against me for a bunch of reasons. One, I'm not an agent of a foreign power. Unlike a lot of people commenting on U.S. politics and global affairs, I have only one loyalty, and that's the United States, and have never acted against it. Its interests are the only interests I care about because I'm from here and I have a lot of kids. So that's not a concern. I've also never taken money from anybody. Don't need it, don't want it, and that's provable. And moreover, it's my job to talk to everybody all the time and try and figure out what's happening around the world. That's literally what I do for a living.
So do you see what's going on here, folks? So Tucker Carlson is a journalist, and the Trump administration is trying to criminalize journalism. This is the exact same thing that MAGA accused the Biden administration of doing and running a censorship industrial complex, Obama raiding the offices of AP and journalists and so forth. Remember the uproar? Remember all that? A continuation under Biden and under Trump. This is a paranoid regime at this point in Washington. So if that's the case, and if they're hell-bent on going after Tucker Carlson for doing journalism, he's right. He has to talk to everybody because he has to know what's going on so that he can inform the American people. So Tucker understands his job as a journalist. He needs to be very well informed about what's going on so that he can inform the American people. He's got a massive platform. Now, I, for one, want the people with massive platforms to be super well informed, to be as objective as possible and fact-driven. And not only that, well, Tucker has exhibited all these things, but he is also, he's committed this cardinal sin in America. He started criticizing the undue influence that the Israeli lobby, Netanyahu, and the state of Israel have over this administration. Cardinal sin. No one in any mainstream or big platform is allowed to do that. If they do, they will reap the whirlwind. And there's a lot of people now commenting they fear for Tucker's safety. I do as well. Everybody should. But there are many journalists, independent journalists, who have been reporting, including who have gone to Iran, including myself, three and a half, almost 4 weeks ago, roughly. But when I was there, there were BBC reporters there. There's Sky News reporters. Both of those people putting out fake news. That was a good education for me to see them in action. And then we also have CNN is there and other media outlets. Now, I will say that it's it should be embarrassing for the so-called right that if you want to get more accurate news about what's going on in Iran right now, you have to go to CNN. Because in general, the reporting that they've been doing from Iran has been relatively accurate for mainstream standards. We don't have high expectations for the mainstream media. So Trump has now given journalistic kudos back in the hands of CNN. So great achievement from Donald Trump. So anyway, I'm just saying, folks, I'm looking at the coverage, looking at the way that some of the reporters, and now they could turn around and turn it into a propaganda train wreck like tomorrow. And I fully expect they're capable of that. CNN, we're talking about, especially if they fall under the Larry Ellison umbrella. Okay, why is Israel and Israeli donors buying up all of our media outlets? Well, I suppose Israel has just no influence in the United States. There are some people out there making this argument, and this is just it's not a serious argument. At this point, anybody making the argument that Israel doesn't have not only influence over this administration, but are front-running all of its foreign policy decisions and military actions, anybody who's making the argument that that's not the case in the face of all of this overwhelming evidence is not serious, or they're making an emotional argument, or they're gaslighting. And why are they gaslighting? Why would people be doing that? I have no idea. I have no idea. But let me just tell you, if Mary Madelson and the Israeli lobby dumped $600 million into Republican campaigns, including the president, quarter of a billion into Donald Trump's coffers, okay, that's what they did in 2024. Do you think they did that for laughs? Do you think they did that just for fun? Do you think they did that not expecting anything in return? If you do, you got to go get your head checked. Get your head checked. Not only did they get something in return, we now know they handpicked every member of Trump's cabinet. And if you understand American politics, then you'll know, if you spend time in America and you're engaged in American politics, then you'll know people equals policy. People equals policy. And if a foreign government, a foreign entity is selecting your cabinet and has control over your president, a president whose family has literally married into the mafia, literally, then they're going to be making decisions on your foreign policy, and they're going to be driving military decision-making as well. And the U.S. have joint operations with Israel, joint operations, and it's on an equal basis. So this tiny little country in the Middle East has joint equal operation command center with the United States, who's this giant global empire. So the U.S. is a world superpower. There's no doubt about that. They do have the world's most powerful military, intelligence apparatus, everything. Most powerful economy, U.S. dollar, world reserve currency, unrivaled. Weaker now than 10 years ago, but yet still unrivaled. But in terms of political decision-making and power and control over that, it's under the major influential hand of a foreign government, and that's provable. And it has been provable for decades. And Israel funds all of those think tanks in Washington that produce all those papers. So what you're really reading there in all that strategy, all those strategy papers, is not necessarily U.S. imperial agendas, but look at who funds them. Look at the individuals who are producing those papers. Look at the institutions and how they're aligned. They reflect the Israeli agenda. It's kind of a no-brainer. And what about the clean break document? The entire neoconservative movement, driven by a very tight coterie of Israelis, dual citizens, Israeli loyalists, hardcore Zionists in the U.S. government in the 1990s and in the 2000s. But I guess Israel has no influence over the U.S. Must be just a coincidence, and shame on me for even bringing that up. So reality check, folks. So on from Cenk here. So when we talk about the censorship, this is Pete Hegseth. Now, this was in October 25th. We reported on this at the time. We said how shocking this was. A massive amount of media outlets walked out of the Pentagon because Pete Hegseth said, you have to put your reporting through my office to check it before you publish it. Now, this is like a Stalinist sort of level of control. So all these journalists walked out, and Pete Hegseth turned around and called them the fake news media. I mean, in America, you might not like the mainstream press, but you can't tell them to run their articles through your military censor before they're allowed to publish them on U.S. soil. You might be able to get away with that with embedded reporters in Iraq, that propaganda hellhole that you guys created during the war. You might get away with it there, but not on U.S. soil, not in Washington, D.C. Not if you actually believe in the U.S. Constitution that you swore an oath to defend and protect. Seriously? So here's the man himself. Let's listen to, well, don't take my word for it. Now here's Pete Hegseth. I mean, this is just one of many. This guy, I don't know what to say about this guy at this point.
There were some who interpreted, Mr. Secretary, what you said earlier in the week, that reporting about casualties is done to make the president look bad. Do you believe that?
I just know the media spends a lot of time making cheap shots at the commander-in-chief. They made a whole industry doing it. And so ultimately, far too often, networks and reporters spend all their time trying to find things that are wrong.
Oh, woe be us. Woe be us, Pete Hegseth, for criticizing you and your self-styled Department of War and this maniacal, insane, quasi-senile president, your commander-in-chief, when your own Secretary of State admitted you launched the war for Israel. It's an illegal war, it's unconstitutional, and all you should get is criticism and shots, pot shots from the press. But you can't handle it. You can't handle it. Because you, sir, are a Fox News weekend host. You were a political nobody a year and a half ago, and you were plucked out of obscurity on Fox, put in as the head of the Pentagon. You were a lowly reservist major. You were a guard at Guantanamo Bay, lording over sheep herders, goat herders, taxi drivers, school teachers in orange jumpsuits from Afghanistan. That's what you were doing while you were a major in the military. You're not qualified to be Secretary of Defense, and you have no authority to rename that department to the, quote, Secretary of War or the Department of War. But that's what you've done. You've been promoted to this galactic level of authority, being totally unqualified, not to mention you are emotionally unstable and visibly unhinged. And you would be. If someone like you was doing a job like that, anyone would be unhinged. Anyone would be emotionally unstable because they have no business being there in the first place. And look at the disaster. Look at the carnage. Look at the damage you've done to the United States of America. You wear that stars and stripes, this little lapel sort of ornament on your suits. You've got all these patriotic tattoos all over your body, okay? All for show. Because the one thing that you should be defending and protecting, you have basically discarded and chucked under the bus. And that, my friend, is the U.S. Constitution. Because that's the only thing that matters. If you lose that, if you delegitimize that, you don't have a country. It's as simple as that. And that's what you power-hungry maniacs don't get. And that's why you did things like this, which is tell the press to run their reports through your office. And then shock horror, they all walked out. So we have a Defense Department or a War Department where you don't really have a lot of journalists in there. You've got these clowns from Breitbart or Lindell TV or whoever. You know, I guess Newsmax is allowed in. I mean, it's a joke. So only people that are sycophant media outlets kissing the administration's arse, they're allowed in. Nobody else is. It's a joke. Okay. So this brings us to the ultimate question here. And a lot of people are saying, you know, who is Donald Trump? Some people say Donald Trump is the latter-day Caligula. Okay. Others would say, as Robert Barnes said, he's like King Lear, you know. So, or I'm going to suggest that Donald Trump is neither Caligula, the sort of crazy Roman emperor, around 37 AD, Caligula basically made famous, well, the theatrical performance of Caligula by Malcolm McDowell in the film in 1979 was absolutely brilliant, that rendition of Caligula. But he was killed by his own guard after 4 years. He's completely insane. So he was initially popular, but he just went, the fame, the power went to his head. Now, that does describe Donald Trump a lot. It's a very apt description, but maybe not quite accurate enough. Now, King Lear, that's an interesting comparison. And I think you can make that argument, surrounded by people that are just telling him what he wants to hear. A senile old dictator was King Lear, and obsessed with the control over his public image, to be viewed as a success. This ticks a lot of boxes with Trump. And you look at the retarded memes that are put out by this White House. I mean, these AI slop that the Trump administration are putting out have just brought the office and the country into disrepute. It's beyond embarrassing at this point. So, one would say somebody who would allow that is not fit to lead a country, let alone the United States. And then, at this point, what can we say? So I'm saying that Trump is Crassus. Trump is more like Marcus Crassus. That's the one in the middle. Why? Because Marcus Crassus is, the power behind Caesar and Pompey at the time. We're talking about, 50 BC, the century before the birth of Christ. So Crassus was marked by this relentless pursuit of wealth and military glory and greed. And that does tick a lot of boxes with Donald Trump. And the thing that got me interested in this comparison was Crassus. One of his money-making schemes was, fires would break out around Rome, and, as if by magic, maybe not coincidentally, who knows, but Crassus would show up with his slaves. It was like his own fire brigade. So Crassus had this had his slaves, and they had a fire brigade, a bucket brigade, and they'd show up when the burning building is up in flames. He'd show up, and he would refuse to put out the fire. The owners would be outside. Crassus, will you please, help put out the fire? And he said, no. I'll buy your building and the land around it at some cut rate price. And unless they agreed to take his offer, he wouldn't put out the fire. But if they agreed, he'd then put out the fire real quick. So this is how he got rich. This is just like another level of ambulance chasing. And then Crassus eventually died in the illegal failed invasion of Parthia in 53 BC. And why that's significant is because that marked really the beginning of the sharp decline of the Roman Empire. Okay. It was a long, painful decline at that point, which took a few hundred years more. But it was Crassus who kind of presided over this epic defeat. And this is where we see a lot of similarities with Donald Trump. And so from that point of view, just this, self-styled businessman, there's a lot of King Lear in there. There's a lot of Caligula in there as well. But in terms of the timeline and what Trump represents in the American empire, I think Marcus Crassus. I think Trump is not Caligula. Trump is Crassus. But anyway, it's just something that we can argue about and debate about here. So why is this getting increasingly dangerous? Well, look at this headline. Top Trump advisor, I think this is David Sachs, calls for an off-ramp to the Iran war. Warns that Israel may consider using nuclear weapons. You saw how desperate Israel's getting. Okay. Now, Haaretz ran this story, and they had to change the headline. I went to look for it. It's gone. They replaced it with this. Israel could use nuclear weapon. Top advisor calls for off-ramp war, warns Israel could just be destroyed. That's Haaretz. That's an Israeli media outlet. It's not a U.S. outlet. It's not a foreign outlet. No, that's Israeli. So this is what's being published. This is what's being talked about. Are you seeing this on Fox? Folks, Americans, are you seeing this on Fox? You're not, are you? No, you're not. Not seeing that on Fox. But that's what's in Israel. That's in the Israeli press. Okay? Somebody is concerned at this newspaper about what's happening in Israel and the madness of Netanyahu and the madness of Trump. So, don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say here. So, this is the question. What happened to this guy? Where is this guy? Where is this guy? He's conspicuously absent. Now, I saw reports of the Wing of Zion, his plane. It's a stupid title for a name of a presidential plane. But anyway, it was hovering over Germany last time I checked. And why is the Israeli president in Germany? Why? I can see him escaping to Cyprus to go hide when the missiles are falling, or, escape to Greece, or who knows, escape to the U.S. So while Israelis are getting hammered by Iranian missiles, Benjamin Netanyahu took off. He legged it. Now, there are accusations that he, when running into one of his bunkers, that the bunker got hit by Iranian missiles. They penetrated the bunker, and Netanyahu may have been seriously injured or worse. Now, whether that's true or not, how accurate that some of that reporting is, that's, there have been television addresses made, or at least broadcast by him. So he may be alive. He may have recovered from injuries. He may be dead. Whatever the case may be, eventually we're going to find out. But what's important here is the tale of two leaders. Netanyahu runs into bunkers, and Ayatollah Ali al-Khamenei said, "I'm not going into the bunker. I'll die in my own house." And the Israelis and the Americans murdered him and his members of his family in an unprovoked, undeclared war of aggression. But the Iranian leader did not run and hide. The Israeli leader did, and does, and continues to run and hide. So that really, I think, speaks volumes. But that's the power behind Trump's throne right there. This is the embodiment of evil. It's hard to argue that that's not the case at this point. Netanyahu, unbelievable. And so here's Ann Coulter. This is another one of those MAGA journalists here, and she's saying, Iran has dispatched operatives to Mexico, where from the Texas border they fired missiles at an American base unintentionally. What? But carelessly. What are we talking about here? Demolished an American school, killing 175 people? Oh no, she's doing we suppose Iran dispatched operatives to Mexico, whatever. What if they blew up fuel depots, showered a chemical rain on the residents, and then struck homes and so forth? This is Ann Coulter basically making a turn the tables comparison here with Trump. In that case, President Trump and all of us would howl at the outrageous attacks on innocent civilians, and we'd be right. So even Ann Coulter is going against Donald Trump. Even the likes of Ann Coulter are going hard in the paint against Trump. So again, MAGA is just deteriorating at this point. So this is what's dominating the U.S. news. Leaked intel warns of Iran's sleeper cells in the U.S. That's dominating the U.S. So, I'm getting false flag vibes. Yep. The FBI are saying they received an anonymous tip in early February that Iran was alleging to conduct surprise attacks in the U.S. with drones. Really? Interesting. But the war started on February 28th, so the timelines don't add up. What, unspecified targets in California? Are you guys serious? Is this the slop that's coming out of the FBI? What are we doing here? Prepping for a false flag narrative? Is that what we're doing? Top U.S. drone expert says Iran could make a deadly California. Why would they go to California? Like what? Is that to rile up the Iranian diaspora in Glendale or Pasadena or what? I mean, this is a joke. Is this to is this to rile up Patrick Bet-David's podcast? Anyway, and again, as if by magic, at the same time, U.S. Army offers a $5,000 reward. I mean, that'll get you a tuna sandwich and a bag of chips in America. A $5,000 reward for information after 4 drones were stolen from Fort Campbell in Kentucky. Wow. Isn't that amazing how all this links up? I don't suppose there's a false flag plot being planned in America. Absolutely not. It's impossible. Why would I even think such a thing? I mean, I must be a crazy conspiracy theorist. Anyway, look, let's take a break right now and connect with our teammates in the Overdrive. Looking forward to hearing what the guys have to say. Hesher, possibly Ruckus, Basil Valentine. We'll be seeing them on the other side. In the meantime, folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Enjoy the music of the Real Anthem band, lead singer Sean Helton, amazing. And we'll probably play that the new Joseph Arthur track again. But we'll see you in a few minutes.
Show of secret talks, a cold stealing serpent calls, buildings burn, masking riot shots. It's TV terror, watch the will of God. Hey, here we are. Heaven come down. Here we are.
Nobody here wants your war. We see through it all and we know the score. You saw yourself off just like before, chasing the ghost of something more. More money, more death, more greed makes the children bleed. More oil, more land to feed. An endless need. It's an endless need. An endless need. It's an endless need. Nobody here wants your war. Thousands will die, maybe many more. The ghosts will find you knocking on your door. Nobody here wants your war. More money, more death, more greed makes the children bleed. More oil, more land to feed. It's an endless need. Endless need. It's an endless need. Endless need. Nobody here wants your war. Schoolhouse is burning, the tickers run. Who were they to you? Nothing more. But they were somebody's daughter and somebody's son. More money, more death, more greed makes the children bleed.